Hi, sorry. Like it clicked a second before I was ready. I was trying to get better posture. God, I'm really dark right now. See if I can shut that off so you can see me a little bit better. So today's been a day I just got from a run, so I might be a little glistening, a little shiny. Though that's better. You can see me better. That doesn't look nice though, does it? I want to stare at that for this half hour that I'm going to be recording. A little bit better. Um, Continue with my trend of doing vulnerable YouTube. Maybe this is like my online diary. That's what I should call it, my online diary. Oh, it's good. Hope this sounds pretty good. Today, strangely enough, in this lockdown, has been beautiful outside, and I just went for a jog, and the weather's amazing. It's the kind of day that you do want to spend outside. My wife did yoga today, and she's there. I know she doesn't want to be on screen because she's in her yoga outfit, and she has her hair like in a little ponytail. It's funny. Um, but her abs are killing her because she did an ab yoga the 2 days ago that destroyed her, and today she did yoga again, and you can't avoid doing abs in yoga. So she did do abs again, even though her abs were on fire. Fire. I want to talk a little bit about polyvagal theory. It's something that I'm looking into when I'm doing my study for PhD. So I'm going to give you like a little my understanding of polyvagal theory, and it's just the rudimentary. You have to do a lot of reading. It's a little more this is just the simplified version. This is the cliff notes. And this is why it affects improv. I'm not quite sure how much it's going to affect my studies. It might be like just a couple pages in my paper. It's very interesting nonetheless. So back in the day, there used to be this thought of the fight or flight syndrome, and I'm glad my wife's in the room because I actually wanted to talk to her about this. If you have any questions or speak up, and I am live on YouTube right now, just so you know. So there was this the theory that everyone's heard about is fight or flight syndrome, which means when human beings are met with a danger or a threat, they either fight or they run away, right? And that's what we've all kind of understood. Now, what polyvagal theory does is it diversifies that quite a bit, and it doesn't seem like quite a bit, but it does. Instead of fight or flight, there only being two options, there's actually three stages, and fight or flight is one of the stages. So polyvagal theory says there is this green zone, and the green zone is where we're ingesting food, where we're sleeping, where we're relaxed, where we feel safe, and it's all about the feeling of safety. And it's funny because in this feeling of safety, this is when we learn more, we're more receptive to ideas and all this kind of stuff. It's like our safe zone, it's our green zone, like a stoplight, right? So in the second phase, the yellow phase, it's when we're faced with a threat, right? And that becomes fight or flight. And that's like when, oh my gosh, our we actually view the world differently. We actually interpret stuff differently because human beings look for patterns and everything. So when green is when we're discovering the patterns, and yellow is when okay, we're using our instincts to react to those patterns. So if it's like a dangerous giraffes come in with the firearm and we need to react, we're not going to sit there and cognitively react to that like, is this a dangerous situation? We're going to react instinctually and we're going to run or we're going to fight it or whatever it is. So that's the second phase. And the third phase um is when you shut down, when your body shuts down. Now, the reason this is important is because it helps us understand trauma. So if someone's been through something traumatic, um, sometimes we look at them and we go, "That's not what I would do." But it's because you're in this, hindsight's 2020, or emotional distance allows you to have that sort of like, "Well, I would have done this," right? And in fact, there's like these cases where people are assaulted and they just shut down. And then afterwards, when people ask them, like defense attorneys or whatever, they're like, "Well, why did you let him or her do that to you?" They go, "I don't know." And it's because when people are experiencing intense amounts of trauma, sometimes they just shut down emotionally. It's a safety mechanism. So you can see where this is very much diversifies. It's not fight or flight because you're not always in fight or flight. You're also sometimes in this other safe zone. It's about these three different levels, and it helps us understand people who deal with post-traumatic stress syndrome and all this kind of stuff. So people that have anxiety, a lot of times will be existing in that yellow zone because they experience a threat, even if there's not a threat. But what's important about these phases is they're driven a lot by it's not psychological, it's physiological. So there's like hormones and adrenaline pumps and all this stuff. So we can't necessarily control the instinctual reaction to it, but we can help train like, okay, when we're in this zone, like we breathe deeply and we'll get back into the green zone where we can learn and all this kind of stuff. So that's polyvagal theory. Now that's like a basic understanding of it. Okay, but here's where it gets named polyvagal theory is because the reason that we used to believe there's this fight or flight syndrome is because we have a central nervous system, right? It's called the vagus, VAGUS. Not Vegas. Everything that happens in the vagus does not stay in the vagus because there's polyvagal theory, right? Um, So what this new theory is, and it's pretty new thought, right? It's a theory, is that instead of like the central nervous system and then the vagus system splits off and does all this kind of stuff. Now there's actually two systems. That's why it's called polyvagal theory. There's the heart to face, and then there's the spinal column to the intestines and digestion, which is why it links into eating and all this kind of stuff, right? So what's really weird, not really weird, I guess the value to me, especially into improv, is the vagus that's the heart to face, because it's literally like an instinctual thing where you're analyzing someone's facial expressions, when you're analyzing socially, like different, like maybe the way they're speaking, or if they're talking really staccato, like all these different things. And when you're socializing, the heart to face vagus is actually connected. So it controls what you're expressing, but also controls how you're receiving this expression as well. And then if you interpret it as you go into the yellow zone, fight or flight kind of thing. So it's really important for us as improv teachers, improv leaders, improv coaches to be aware of this, because a lot of times, especially new improvisers, new students to the classroom, will probably always be in that yellow zone because they just improvising or just getting on stage and not having a script will put them in that heightened sense, which affects the way, and they can't help it, affects the way they view incoming information, also affects the way that they express stuff outside of their control. You know how like people, like they're funny with their friends? It's because they're feeling safe. They're in that safe zone. So their mind's allowed to wander, their subconscious is allowed to go. But then when you put them in an improv class, they might not be as funny. They might make bad jokes. They might do all this other kind of stuff because they're not in their safety zone. And it's not anything, like I said, it's not psychological, it's physiological. It's actually affected by the brain and hormones and your ability to want to survive and everything. So it's really important, not important, it's valuable for us as improv coaches to be aware that in improv 101, everyone every day will probably be in that fight or flight, that yellow zone. And it's not until they feel confident enough, you give them the skills, or they feel as if you've given them enough skills to do a good show, that they'll start feeling that they can perform and explore in that green zone of being the safe zone, where they can listen um, and explore information that's coming into them. Because the fight or flight, you're only trying to listen to important information, because the stimulus is not just what your partner's saying, it's also the audience in the room, and oh my, what's the teacher think about me? What's other students think about? It's not just your scene partner. It's the survival mechanism. My friend Jay Suko says that one of the reasons people, especially in classes, that they get so, it's a fear mechanism, that if you're on, if you're on stage and it's only you feel like there's 30 or 40 people, 30 or 40 pairs of eyes looking at us, that's a fear thing. That's a survival thing. Oh my God, they're looking at me. There's this division between me as a performer and them as an audience. So people's hackles are raised and the defenses are up. So especially as an improv teacher, you have to realize that new students are probably going to be that way throughout the whole first course. And it's not until after that first course, that improv course, that they're going to start feeling more comfortable to bring their narratives on stage and their personal references and their specifics on stage. So that, in a very extreme nutshell, is polyvagal theory. I have a lot more to read about it. Um, and so I think it's really good information. And like I said, it's a pretty new theory. Did you have any questions or thoughts about that? I'll probably have to repeat it back to you because the sound doesn't carry very well. Yes. Question in the back.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds really interesting.
She thinks it sounds very interesting.
It's, I think it's true to think of how like you have to consider like the shutdown part of the brain too.
The shutdown part of the brain.
Just like fight, because it is also that fight, flight. You're so conflicted, like analysis paralysis.
Analysis paralysis.
And then that causes people like shut down as well.
So sometimes when you're on stage, especially if you're playing like the game New Choice or something, and your New Choice, some people might not have anything because they've shut down. They've gone to that red zone. Yeah. So that was Monica's observation, which I think is really good. Please feel free to comment to this. I'm going to try to do this more regularly, and I think I want to end with